Today we're talking with Jen McEwen from wellspringliving.org, and we're doing a follow-up to an article that was put out April 2011 in the Georgia Perimeter College Collegian, and the name of that article was Saving the Victims of Trafficking. When I read this, I decided that this conversation thread should go further, and that's how we got where we are today. So maybe you could share a little bit of information with us today about your organization and what you do to help girls.
Sure, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me here. This is such an important issue, and we are so glad that Georgia Perimeter College wants to be involved in the solution, because that's truly what it will take, a community response of all of us working together. But you're right, I'm so glad that the article went out, because the fact is that 100 girls a month are sold on the streets of Georgia, and that is a crime against humanity. Atlanta is actually one of the top cities in the U.S. for the prostitution of children, and you know, that is something that we as a community need to take a stand against. And you know, a lot of people think of this issue, the human trafficking, what is it? You know, maybe they've heard of it abroad or internationally, but they don't realize that it happens here. And so what human trafficking is when someone is coerced or held against their will to perform sexual acts for money. And generally speaking, with these children, they're forced against their will, or their family is, you know, someone tells them that they'll hurt their family if they don't do this. And generally these kids are vulnerable kids anyway. They are kids who have had difficult times at home and have run away from home and find themselves in a vulnerable position where they're easy to take advantage of. And so, you know, when you think of vulnerable kids, high-risk kids out on the street, and these people, you know, taking advantage, it's a really sad situation. And the fact is, it's happening all over Atlanta. You know, there are statistics that tell us that once a child gets trafficked, their life expectancy is 7 years after their trafficking. And so they're only expected to live 7 years after that event. And so we're not just talking about kids being abused, we're actually talking about a life and death issue here. And you know, not only physically either, we're talking about, you know, being a very important time in their development, and how this trauma affects them as people and how that will affect the rest of their life. And so, you know, it's a big issue. Atlanta, like I said, is one of the leaders. There are actually statistics that tell us that in Atlanta, there are 7,200 men who buy sex from minors every single month.
Because the awareness is not there, everyone has something else more important to concentrate on rather than dedicate their time on girls troubled girls who are out there selling their bodies, and troubled teenagers who are disrespectful to their parents and want to leave the house or leave the nest and go out on their own. And that's why it's not getting so much attention, because these kids, because the awareness is not there, most people, when they look at these kids, they think, oh, they're just troubled kids.
I became involved in this issue not by choice. I am a survivor of commercial sexual exploitation. I grew up here in Atlanta. Basically, my mom was schizophrenic and she wasn't able to raise me. And that put me at a disadvantage. And at that, during that time, I was placed with an aunt, and I was in her home, and I was abused sexually and physically. And at the age of 12, I became very unruly. I was very angry because of the things that were going on in my life. And at 12, she sent me to stay back with my mom. That was basically like putting me on the streets. I had to provide for myself, and a 12-year-old, they don't have the means to do that on their own. And it took about a year, and DFACS took me into custody. And at the age of 13, I became a runaway. This happened a lot. I would be placed in a home, a group home, a shelter, and I would run away because I was not happy there and I was mistreated a lot. And to make a long story short, by the age of 12 to 16, I had been through 42 different homes. And at that time, I really lost touch of reality. And during this time, I also, at 16, I became a teenage mom, and I had no way to provide for my daughter. And I had always wanted to be a mom. And now I'm so broken because not only do I not have the resources to provide for myself, I don't have the resources to provide for my daughter. So I had to give her to her father to raise. And I was very angry and bitter, so I ran away again. And I remember very specifically because it was a very cold night here in Atlanta. And it was in the middle of January, and I was standing in an abandoned apartment. And I was very desperate. I hadn't ate anything for probably about 2 or 3 days, and I really thought I was about to die. And I reached out to someone, my godmother, who I had met in church when I was very young. And she was one of the people who I could reach out to. So I called her, and I knew that I needed help and I needed it fast. And she told me a childhood friend had tried to contact me, and I called the friend and I told her my situation, and she said, well, I know somebody who can help you. So I rode down to Atlanta to her house and met with her, and I just told her, look, I don't have anywhere to go. I'm homeless and I really need help. And she took me, we got in the car and rode to a strip club here in Atlanta, and she introduced me to this guy. And by the looks of it, he looked very important, very prominent, and he told me his name was Sir Charles. At that time, I had been very sheltered. I did not know what a pimp was. I come from a very religious background. We went to church probably 6 days a week, so I really did not know what to look for or the warning signs. And so she introduced me to this guy, and she left me there with him. And we went for a ride, and for some reason he made me feel very important. He made me feel like he was listening to me. And I told him everything about me. And he took me to get something to eat, which I was very grateful because one, he fulfilled a need for me. And then one of the other things he did, I had told him about my daughter. He took me to see my daughter that day, and I hadn't seen her in probably about 6 months. And I just thought he was the nicest person in the world. And so later that night, he told me that I didn't have to be homeless anymore. I didn't have to walk around hungry and dirty, that I was too pretty to be living those kind of conditions, and he would help me. And he took me to the strip club what I had met him at earlier, and for the first time he offered me a solution I thought was a solution, and he told me what I would have to do, and so I did it. And I lost a piece of myself that night. The girls who are lured into this lifestyle are addicted to love. They're searching for love, but that family unit that I saw that day, that is what drew me in, because I've always wanted a family. And so that lasted probably 3 nights, and on the 3rd night he came to me. He said, well, you can't go to the club anymore. The guy says that you're under 18 and I'm not going to get in trouble for you dancing at this club with no permit, so there's something else you got to do if you want to make some money to provide for yourself. And so he took me it was Stewart Avenue. It's called Metropolitan Avenue now, but back then it was Stewart Avenue. And he told me, you're not going to be going to the club anymore. He gave me this list of things that I would have to do and what to say and what not to say. It was like a list of rules. And so I kind of like tried to process that and everything else, and here I am dressed in a mini skirt and a see-through shirt and high heels that I know I can't walk in. And he's telling me all this, and he tells me I guess by the look on my face, I look very uncomfortable. He says, if you don't do the things that I just told you to do, you know, that little girl you introduced me to, I'll make sure something happens to her. And I'm just sitting there, and I'm not knowing what to say, because I've seen him get violent with the other girls, and I did not want that for myself. And I was terrified of this man who I thought was so nice and so trusting.
So we can get easily tricked in these kind of things. I feel like that we can get easily tricked by these kind of things, and especially to make money, because we can't work off campus, and you know, to make money, like we have higher chances going in the wrong direction. If someone says, oh, come get an extra buck, we think that it's for something good, we get our textbook, but it's basically, you know, going into crime.
People all around our nation are learning about this problem, that trafficking happens in the U.S., and they're trying to determine a way to respond to it. And one of the neatest things is that Georgia has really begun a community response. There's a network of organizations and individuals and students and lawmakers and all kinds of people who care about this issue and want to be a part of the solution. And that's exactly what it takes. It takes every person contributing. And I know sometimes college students think, oh, well, you know, I'm busy with school, or I don't have a lot of money, or whatever the things that we think of as normally being helpful to nonprofit organizations. You know, those aren't the only ways to get involved. And I think that, you know, absolutely. And joining the community effort is a huge part.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And I want to thank you so much for coming today and telling us and giving us an opportunity to let our audience know more about what advocates are doing out there right now, and to let everybody know that one person can make a difference. I started this project not 8 weeks ago, and I will certainly reach probably 30,000 people plus. So one person can make a difference. Thank you so much again, and it was a joy to have you here today. This is Terri Davis signing off with Collegian TV.